Our news is brought to you by Alive.
Coming up tonight, the PM announces privileges for those fully vaccinated, a new curfew for mainland Abaco, and a look at the Fire Festival 4 years later. Welcome to our news and thanks for joining us. I'm Christina Dragovich. Topping news tonight, as the country grapples with a third wave of COVID-19 cases, the Prime Minister announced a number of privileges that will be available to those fully vaccinated. Kyle Joaquin has the details.
Christina, I guess you can call it a push for more people to go and get vaccinated, but today the Prime Minister announced several privileges that will be made available to those who are fully vaccinated.
Once they have received the second dose of the vaccine, or they have met the vaccination requirements, they do not need any further testing to move about through our Bahamaland.
The Prime Minister calling off a list of privileges that we once had pre-COVID, but now for those fully vaccinated. The $100 plus fee for RT-PCR tests, in addition to the travel health visa, has been a pain for many traveling from New Providence, Grand Bahama, and Abaco. But Minister revealing that those days will now be behind everyone who has gotten their second jab. And for those looking to enter the Bahamas, here's what takes effect May 1st.
Those traveling to the Bahamas from outside of the country will be exempted from a COVID-19 test if they are fully vaccinated and have passed the 2-week immunity period.
Those not fully vaccinated must still present a negative result for a COVID-19 test. And after a year of being forced to only drive through or eat outdoors, indoor dining is making a return, but only for those fully vaccinated.
Individuals can participate in a closed environment once all within that closed environment are fully vaccinated. Then the mask would not be necessary.
Minister pointing to things like Junkanoo and independence celebrations that were able to occur pre-COVID, and how vaccinated persons would be able to begin preparation.
Those like myself who participate in Junkanoo, once we are all vaccinated, we can work within the Junkanoo shacks among us all vaccinated individuals.
But the country remains smack in the middle of a third wave. While he didn't announce any tighter restrictions, Minister advised that there will be stricter enforcement of protocols. For Our News, I'm Kyle Joaquin.
Well, the Consultant Physician Staff Association president hitting out at the vaccine privileges announced this morning. She is advising the government against removing testing requirements. Berthany McDermott has that angle.
The decision to remove testing requirements for fully vaccinated travelers moving about the Bahamas isn't sitting well with CPSA President Dr. Sabrika Pinder-Butler, who questioned why the requirements for international travelers differ from domestic.
Why the same wouldn't hold. We're still human beings, being vaccinated and traveling through different islands. I don't know if it will make a difference because it's international versus domestic.
Given the onset of the third wave of COVID-19 and the reality that there is still a possibility that COVID-19 can be transmitted even in vaccinated persons, she advised against removing testing requirements.
A lot of that has come from international travel. I think that we have to certainly weigh that as a very heavy player when we make these types of processes related to travel and testing.
According to the Center for Disease Control, individuals are considered fully vaccinated 2 weeks after their second dose in a 2-dose series with vaccines such as Pfizer or Moderna, or 2 weeks after a single-dose vaccine like Johnson & Johnson. But according to Dr. Minnis, that won't be the case here.
With the timeline that perhaps allows for persons body's response, their immune response, to be as efficient as it would be related to any transmission and that sort of thing. I think it's something that we should consider as to why it is that the CDC would make that recommendation.
Now again, Dr. Pinder Butler is urging Bahamians to remain cautious, especially given the fact that there are constantly new developments emerging with this virus. Reporting for Our News, I'm Berthany McDermott.
Well, will perks for taking the vaccine announced by the Prime Minister be enough to convince uncertain Bahamians to take the COVID-19 jab? Jared Higgs hit the streets to find out.
I'd rather take my COVID test every week. I'm fine with that.
Some skeptical Bahamians offered indifferent reactions to incentives for fully vaccinated individuals announced by the Prime Minister. 37-year-old Yvette John says it won't make her change her position.
No, it's not fishy because why they giving away something just to give people this vaccine? It's supposed to be a matter of choice.
More than 22,000 Bahamians have received their first dose of the COVID-19 vaccine. But widespread vaccine mistrust means many vaccine centers still have supplies left, despite the country having a limited amount of vaccines in the first place. The incentives for fully vaccinated individuals announced by the Prime Minister include being able to travel without the testing requirement and permission to dine indoors. Despite those perks, John, who's been out of work more than a year, says it's still a no.
Now, because I take the vaccine, it's okay for me to travel, so it sounds a little fishy. It's a bit weird.
But not everybody sees things that way. Cameron Reckley is a banker, and while he hasn't gotten his first dose yet, he's on board with taking the vaccine.
I think for fear, lack of knowledge. Most persons, they read what they listen to on social media and all that. They normally don't pay attention to the experts.
Reckley says the incentives laid out are a good idea.
It eases the burden, especially of travel. We want to eat indoors and stuff like that. So the incentives the Prime Minister made, I think it's a good thing that he did.
But Reckley looks to still be in the minority. A woman we spoke to says she isn't eligible for the jab because of her pregnancy. Even then, she says she would be cautious about getting the shot.
A lot of Bahamians are wanting the vaccination to travel. That's the biggest concern right now. Everybody wants to go away. And but for my part, it still would not encourage me to get it because I'm not fully sure of the effects of it. Later down, next 3 years or whatever, if you've been impacted by the vaccination of 2021, you're now entitled to compensation. So I don't want to be caught up in that.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Jared Higgs.
And after spending months under an 8 p.m. curfew, those on mainland Abaco can now stay out later. Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis announced an extended curfew in Parliament this morning, despite new COVID-19 cases confirmed on the island in recent days.
Effective immediately, the daily curfew on mainland Abaco will be removed from 8 p.m. to 5 a.m. and replaced by 10 p.m. to 5 a.m.
In other news, over on Grand Bahama, officers of the Criminal Investigation Department brought 19-year-old Haywood Dorset of Holmes Rock before Magistrate LaQuay Lang to be arraigned on charges of unlawful sexual intercourse and child pornography. Dorset was charged after a 13-year-old girl's father made a complaint on her behalf last week. Dorset was not required to enter a plea and was remanded to the Bahamas Department of Corrections until he returns to court on July 28th. For the beginning of trial. And more muggy conditions today, but will it cool off? Greg Thompson is in the Weather Center with the details.
Thanks, Christina. I'm meteorologist Greg Thompson with your first look at weather. Very warm evening outside our studios. We call it warm and hazy. That haze is still hanging out across our area. Temperatures soaring into the 70s. 77 is our current temperature outside our studios. The winds are very light out of the southwest at 4 knots. And that feels like temperature, very warm, 77. Satellite view, we have a lot more clouds around the area right now. That frontal boundary sagging towards the south across the northwest Bahamas. Some showers and isolated thunderstorms. Grand Bahama, Bimini, and the Abacos. You guys getting in on the action. But southeast to southerly winds, bringing in some warm temperatures still. That's your first look at weather. Your extended forecast is still to come.
Still to come, how one Exuma business was impacted by the greatest party that never was. Plus, Potter's Key vendors eager to rebuild. There's more after this.
Welcome to our news and thanks for joining us. Topping news tonight.
COVID-19 remains a serious threat.
Coronavirus COVID-19 has disrupted our economy, tourism industry, educational system, and put our healthcare facilities and professionals on high alert. Are you prepared? Do you have all the facts? Stay tuned to this network for the very latest news and information on this global pandemic.
Nearly 4 years after the infamous Fire Festival fizzled out, a scammed Exuma restaurant owner says she still bears the mental scars from the biggest party that never was. Jasmine Brown joins us now to tell us about her inspiring story. Jasmine?
That's right, Christina. We spoke to Mary Ann Roll and her husband Elvis on the anniversary of the Fire Festival, which was a complete failure. And despite the fact that they say they are still reeling, they insist it will not define their future.
Good afternoon. I'm Mary Ann Roll, and you're at Exuma Point Peach Barn Grill in Rollville. Beautiful settlement in Exuma, Bahamas.
Meet Mary Ann Roll. It's hard to believe a woman with such a bubbly personality and winning smile lost $50,000 of her life savings due to the failed Fire Festival. Now, nearly 4 years later, she has yet to receive any compensation from festival organizers. If Roll looks familiar, that's because she became an instant star after telling her tale in the widely popular 2019 Netflix documentary, Fire Festival, the greatest party that never was. The documentary thrust Roll and her husband Elvis into the international spotlight as thousands of people donated more than $100,000 to a GoFundMe account.
It was a roller coaster, but somehow we were able to stumble and roll and get back up on our feet once more, get started back with life and our business. And we are so thankful to God and for all those supporters who had buy into the GoFundMe to help us rebuild our lives.
And to be honest with you, the GoFundMe was good. All right, it helped us a lot. But yet still, the Fire Fest still need to pay us. That's what I'm looking for, you know, that they can even get back and pay us and pay the Exumians.
Fire Festival was scheduled to take place on April 28th through 30th and May 5th through 7th, 2017 on Great Exuma. Roll was not the only victim of the failed event. Just this week, Fire Festival attendees won a $2 million class action settlement. The proposed settlement would give more than $7,000 apiece back to a few hundred people who bought tickets to the event. Tickets for the event ranged between $1,000 to $12,000, but when ticket holders arrived, they were met with half-built tents, cheese sandwiches, and all-around chaos. Roll says despite the nightmarish conditions, she believes there were a lot of lessons learned.
I still feel behind every dark cloud is a silver lining.
So Jasmine, tell us, is there any sense that Exuma business owners will receive some kind of compensation through a settlement?
Right now, it's really unclear if any of those entrepreneurs here in Exuma will get any money. But what we do know is the festival organizer, Billy McFarlane, is still behind bars, serving out his 6-year sentence. Back to you, Christina.
Thanks, Jasmine. Well, the ash and debris have been cleaned up now, but Potter's Key vendors whose businesses went up in flames 2 weeks ago are appealing to the government to quickly clear them to rebuild. Our Jillian Gray has that.
After 40 years on the dock, Matthew Roll now finds himself starting from scratch. As if the pandemic wasn't enough to throw a wrench in his business plans, Roll says the recent fire on Potter's Key dock has landed him back at square one after only being open for a month.
The first lockdown knocked me out. That knocked me out of the race. So I decided not to open up until COVID was over, but I came in because I broke and everything I had to work. 4 weeks ago, I came back to work. And this happened, So that just sink me deeper.
For Marvin Cartwright of Forbes Conch Salon and Bar, the past 2 weeks have not been easy, but he says he's not giving up.
I've been making it, like, we still have, like, some conchs in the water and other stuff, so we still are, like, kind of doing just what we have to, just to get by.
For 2 decades, Dwayne Bastian, also known as Tallboy, has operated a stall on Potters Key Dock. He's worried about the dozens of workers now at home with no income, not to mention their employers who are struggling to rebuild. While he says he's grateful for the help from various political and civic organizations with the cleanup process, it's the mounting bills that they need help with.
No one is working right now. I have 8 stalls out of work, and no one coming down here to find out, like, hey, y'all have food. You all good? You understand what I'm saying? I think that's really bad on the government behalf.
Now, vendors say officials have suggested that they move to these trailers temporarily, but to them, that sounds like moving from a bad to a worse situation. What they really want is to rebuild their stalls in the soonest possible time, and they say to do that, they need partnership with the government.
They actually move out. So it wasn't good for them to work, and then it ain't gonna be good for us to work inside it. And then you have the place in the back there that actually sell all the chemicals and stuff like that. And I don't think food and chemical not gonna be able to mix. Everybody has dragging their feet. This ain't nothing drag of feet time. This right here now, we had this major fire, and we need help.
Bastian says they plan to build back better so that the stalls can be insured. Reporting for our news, I'm Jillian Gray.
Still to come, why Grand Bahama police say there's a zero tolerance for assault on officers. Plus, Marcellus Hall has the hottest sports highlights when our news returns.
Welcome to our news and thanks for joining us. Topping news tonight.
COVID-19 remains a serious threat.
Coronavirus COVID-19 has disrupted our economy, tourism industry, educational system, and put our healthcare facilities and professionals on high alert. Are you prepared? Do you have all the facts? Stay tuned to this network for the very latest news and information on this global pandemic.
This is our news. Welcome back. A routine traffic stop on Grand Bahama over the weekend left a police officer injured after being knocked down and dragged by a motorist. Now the Assistant Commissioner of Police on that island is asserting that assault against police officers will not be tolerated.
The driver refused to give his name and address, and the officer had the car door, the passenger door, slightly open. And he was in between the road and the car, and the driver actually pulled off with the officer clinging onto the vehicle. And he dragged him some distance. The officer fell and he injured himself. He had to go to the hospital.
ASP Ashton Greenslade warned that officers have been adequately trained and will use force if necessary.
First and foremost, I wish to address members of the public who seek to break the law. I warn you that my officers will not be complacent in the execution of their duties. Please be mindful that these officers are efficiently trained and will use necessary force to enforce the law. Furthermore, be advised that we take matters of this nature very seriously, and all violators, without exception, will be dealt with to the fullest extent of the law.
Well, a new virtual event is coming up, promising to connect leaders in economics, geopolitics, healthcare, and the environment. Joining us virtually to give us a few more details is RF Marketing Manager Rachel Alahar. Welcome.
Hi, Christina.
So tell us about the upcoming RF Bahamas Economic Outlook.
Well, you're exactly right. This year we are fully virtual, so it's actually our 7th year having the conference, and that's one of the biggest changes for attendees. Like so many other things that have been affected by the pandemic, we too had to kind of pivot, but because we thought that the conference is so instrumental to helping guide the Caribbean and our attendees, we really wanted to continue putting it forward. And the other big change this year is that we're expanding into a 3rd market. So we'll be in Bahamas, Cayman, and Barbados this year, all happening at the same event.
And so how are you hoping that professionals from all over the region, not just the Bahamas, how are you hoping that you can add value?
Well, the goal of the conference is really to bring together our thought leaders so that they can hear outside opinions. You know, we can get caught in a bubble, the bubble mentality when we're living on an island. So this really helps to bring in experts on a range of different ideas and topics that are really impacting our region and globally to discuss the differences and the opportunities and the threats, like our theme this year, and how we can really capitalize and navigate a path towards sustainable growth in the Caribbean.
All right, so when is the Outlook taking place and how can people find out more?
It will take place on May 6th, and all the information is on our website, which is www.rfeoc.com.
All right, thank you so much for joining us, Rachel. We look forward to hearing more about that outlook.
Thank you.
And tonight in sports, the season of futility continuing for Grand Bahama native Buddy Hield and the Sacramento Kings. Marcellus Hall has that.
All right, thanks so much, Christina. Welcome to our sports on a Wednesday, everybody. I'm Marcellus Hall. The 2021 basketball season has been an absolute failure for Buddy Hield and the Sacramento Kings. Coming into last night, they were near the bottom of the Western Conference. The good news is they were going to take on a team that was even worse than they were. The Minnesota Timberwolves, a team that was actually at the bottom of the heap. Seems like a recipe for a win. Turns out, though, not so much. Sacramento Kings on the floor last night, this time taking on the Minnesota Timberwolves. Wolves' worst record in the Western Conference coming into last night at 14-43. Kings not much better, sitting at 23-33 before last night's contest. This is how you know you're having a rough season. Kings not only lose the game, they get blown out. 134-120 ends up being your final score, losing to the Timberwolves for the second time this season. Buddy, who scored just 2 points in the Kings' last game, able to generate some better offense in this one. He scored 11 points to go along with 4 rebounds and 2 assists. That came in 29 minutes on the floor. So the Kings' struggles continue. They get another crack at it tonight against that very same Timberwolves squad. Sacramento has now lost 10 of their last 11 games. And that's your look at sports here on this Wednesday. I'm Marcellus Hall. Back to you, Christina.
Thanks, Marcellus. When our news returns, get smart at home with Alive. We'll tell you how after this.
Welcome to our news and thanks for joining. Topping news tonight.
COVID-19 remains a serious threat.
Coronavirus COVID-19 has disrupted our economy, tourism industry, educational system, and put our healthcare facilities and professionals on high alert. Are you prepared? Do you have all the facts? Stay tuned to this network for the very latest news and information on this global pandemic.
Welcome back to our news. We're still hoping for some rain this week. Greg is back in the Weather Center with the latest forecast.
Thanks again, Christina, and a happy Wednesday evening, everybody. Very warm, humid and hazy day across the islands once again as we still are battling with that Saharan dust that's dominating our skies. But we do have some tropical moisture pooling across our area ahead of a frontal boundary that's now across the northwest Bahamas. Some showers and isolated thunderstorms with that system as it continues to pull towards the south. That combined with a high pressure system in the Atlantic will continue to keep our temperatures warm for at least one more day before we see that front get out and cool us down a bit. Your boating forecast for the northwest Bahamas tonight through tomorrow, actually for the northwest and central Bahamas. South to southwest winds 10 to 15 knots, seas 2 to 4 feet over the ocean. While in the southeast Bahamas, we expect those winds to be a little stronger. East to southeast winds 15 knots, seas running 3 to 5 feet. Low tide will be at 9:53 tonight. Here's a look now at your national forecast. A look now at your extended forecast through Monday. That's a look at our weather. Make it a safe night, everybody. Back to you, Christina.
Thanks, Greg. Alive Cable Beach is expanding its product offerings with a smart home suite powered by Life Connect, a free app you can download on your cell phone to view and secure your home over Wi-Fi. Alive agent Ruel Bowe walks us through the smart home suite, starting with the doorbell.
One of the key devices that we have is the Smart Ring doorbell, and what it allows our customers to do is actively see or listen to or even speak to persons who are at their door, whether it's daytime or nighttime. It allows you to communicate with your kids, or whether you're in the front room, in the backyard, playing dominoes, doing various sorts of things. It gives you that peace of mind to know that your kids are safe.
The smart home also comes equipped with door sensors and smart light bulbs.
We also have our window and door sensor. So you might have an area of your home. There's a notification. These smart light bulbs. You can control the light bulbs whether you're away from your home. The light just went off, actually. Or if you're inside another part of your home, it allows you to conserve energy in that manner.
Thank you for joining us for our news tonight. On behalf of the entire team, I'm Christina Dragovich. We'll see you right back here tomorrow night. Have a beautiful evening, Bahamas.